It's termite season.
Hi, it's me.
And bugs fear the blue trucks from Essential Pest Control.
Go blue at Essential Pest Control. We'll eliminate those bugs, bees, and termites. And stop paying too much to that national provider. Buy local for great service and affordable rates. Call Essential Pest Control because termites fear the blue.
Run for your life.
Call for the blue trucks from Essential Pest Control. 886-3029. That's 886-3029. Or check online at essentialpest.com.
This is Ed Wilkinson with Wilkinson Wealth Management, where we manage money for gun owners. What does it mean to retire comfortably and remain comfortably retired? It means designing a plan that allows you to do the things you want to do, outpace inflation, and never run out of money in your lifetime. If you want to retire comfortably and remain comfortably retired, call me, Ed Wilkinson, at 777-1911. That's 777-1911 or WilkinsonWealthMGMT.com.
I'm proud to welcome my good friends at Tucson Iron and Metal Retail to Inside Track as an advertiser. Jamie Kipper and her staff are conservation experts. They sell round and square steel tubing, metal plate and roofing materials, as well as new and used steel, aluminum, and stainless steel to ranchers, artists, interior designers, roofers, as well as you do-it-yourselfers out there. Tucson Iron and Metal Retail is open Monday through Fridays, 8 a.m. to 4:30 p.m., and Saturdays, 8 a.m. to noon. Tucson Iron and Steel Retail, 701 East 36th Street. Call 520-209-1576. That's 520-209-1576. Or go to TucsonIronRetail.com. Come by and be sure to ask for Jamie. Tucson Iron and Steel Retail. This is what conservation and repurposing is all about.
This is an urgent message from the Daniel Gutierrez for Congress campaign. The CD7 special election's going on right now. If you haven't voted yet, now's the time to do it. If you think you're on the early voter list and you haven't received your ballot, it's time to take action. Head over to the Pima Votes website where you can find early voting sites and drop-off boxes. Pima Vote site also has map and listing of all the Election Day vote centers, which are open from 6 a.m. to 7 p.m. September 23rd. This is going to be a tough election. Every vote counts. Make sure you're part of the change that needs to happen in Southern Arizona CD7. Make sure you vote and vote for Daniel Gutierrez, paid for by Gutierrez for U.S. Congress.
Welcome to Inside Track with Bruce Ash and Ed Wilkinson on the Live the Dream Media Network.
Live from Marana, it's Bruce Ash and
Ed Wilkinson.
Welcome back to a Constitution Day 2025 edition of Inside Track. We have another action-packed Big Wednesday show for you today. Yep.
Hey, thanks for joining us today on Big Wednesday. Joining us in just a few moments, author Thomas Wolfe, as we're headed into the 2025 MLB playoffs in just over 2 weeks. Can't believe it's here already, Bruce.
Yep, it sure is. My team's running out of dates.
We'll be reliving 1920s baseball, Yankees versus Cardinals, and the 1926 season, his newest book, Baseball in the Roaring '20s. In the second half of today's Big Wednesday show, Bruce and I are going to catch up on the news from the past week, including the assassination of Charlie Kirk and our country's future in these unprecedented political times.
And we're also going to have David Bossie on from Citizens United talking about efforts by the federal government in Memphis, Tennessee.
Perfect. Thanks for joining us on Live the Dream app or watching us on X, Facebook, YouTube, and other platforms. To talk with us or any of our guests, call in today at 520-771-5101 or send a message to us on Live the Dream Media Facebook site. Bruce?
Evan, I hope you will continue supporting our great sponsors who help us pay the man here at Live the Dream Media. Eb's great company, Wilkinson Wealth Management. He helps my family. Feels like a country sometimes, and he can help yours as well. Our good friend Eric Rudin at Essential Pest, his team of professionals will protect your home or office from all manner of pests, vermin, and weeds. Jamie Kipper from Tucson Iron and Metal Retail, and my family's hardworking 3-generation real estate company, Paul Ash Commercial Real Estate, where we make good things happen every day. When you call upon any of our supporters, please let them know you found out about their business from Evan Bruce on Inside Track. And we are pleased, I think he's here. We're pleased to welcome our first guest today, author Thomas Wolfe. Our guest was born and raised, educated in the Midwest. He served in Vista, just like my brother-in-law Rich did in the 1960s. Earned his MFA and is a two-time recipient of the Doris Betts Fiction Prize. He has written fiction, Midnight Assassin, A Murder in America's Heartland, and The Plea, a true story of the young Wesley Elkins and his redemption, and books on baseball, The Called Shot, Babe Ruth, The Chicago Cubs, and the unforgettable Major League season of 1932 when he called his shot. Thomas and his wife live in North Carolina, a great place to live, and they have three grown sons. They live together with their pup, Cody. Welcome to Inside Track.
Hi, thank you. That's a great introduction. I appreciate that.
Yeah, we're so pleased that you could join us today. Your book on 1920s baseball. Let's see if I can put it on the screen here.
That's it.
Is about the Yankees and the Cardinals, plus a lot more. Setting the Yankees aside for a second because it's so easy to be front-runner fans. Are there any more knowledgeable and loyal fans than St. Louis baseball fans anywhere in Major League Baseball?
I don't know. Boston and Chicago might have some, but yeah, Cardinals fans are very loyal. I'm married to a woman who grew up in St. Louis as a Cardinals fan, so I know all about that passion for the Cardinals.
I had a buddy. He's now passed, and we would go to ballparks around the country. I've probably been to, give or take, about 2/3, maybe a little bit more, of all the major league ballparks, and he and I did a lot of those together. And about 12 or 14 years ago, we were in St. Louis. We had done kind of a little tour. We did the Cleveland Indians, we did the Cincinnati Reds, and then we traveled to St. Louis to watch the Cardinals. And it was a Sunday game. We were walking from the hotel to the ballpark, which is a great thing that you can do in St. Louis. And the sky was absolutely black. It was a Sunday night game. And I said to my friend, I don't know that they're going to get this game off tonight. And sure enough, they were like maybe half inning into the game, and just the sky just broke loose. Thunder, lightning, rain like I've never seen before, even in the monsoons here in Tucson. And so the game started at give or take like 6:30 St. Louis time, and there was a rain delay, and there was a rain delay, and there was a rain delay, and even more rain delay. They didn't start the game until about 10:20 that evening.
Wow.
Now, Tom, I don't think it would surprise you, and maybe not you as well, Sam, because you're kind of in those stomping grounds in that general area, right?
Yes.
They had about 30,000 fans that showed up for the game when it started, initially. About 25,000 of those fans sat in the covered concourse, and they found shelter wherever they could find it. And when that game started up, Bush Park was all filled up again. I think they're amazing fans. I go to the Diamondbacks here in Arizona. I go to Dodger Stadium. I go to Petco Park in St. Louis. When a guy like Shohei Ohtani hits this majestic fly ball, and it's not going out of the ballpark most of the times, obviously. You hear these oohs and ahs and sighs and everything else. People out here in the West, when they see a big fly ball, they think it's going to be a home run every time, but not St. Louis fans. And you're probably right. Boston fans and Chicago fans probably Cubs. The same way. They know baseball. I think it's great how we've kind of developed that culture in certain cities.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you speak to the fan bases and also just to the beauty of baseball. I mean, I think one of the things that keeps baseball fans in the stands for 4 hours during a rain delay is just the appreciation of being in the crowd and being there in that baseball environment. I think that's something that goes back in baseball history all the way back to the beginnings in the 1800s, and then, of course, in the major leagues in the 1900s. And Cardinal fans were certainly enthused in 1926 because it was their first pennant and their first World Series championship. And next to the Yankees, they've won more world championships than any other team.
What a great history of that ball club. Major League Baseball had been shaken by the Black Sox scandal in 1919. There were so many stars of the game in the Roaring '20s. The color barrier had not been breached, but there were also great stars in the Negro League. Radio had just brought the game to the masses. Both Boston teams and the New York Baseball Giants had great success in the teens, and the '20s saw Murderers Row and the start of Yankee domination and Cardinals domination of the Fall Classic. The nation arguably became a leading world power after World War I. The economy was great until it wasn't. And stars of the '20s led the way into Cooperstown a decade later. As a Midwesterner, talk about your interest in writing about baseball. And at this time, what does the game, you think, mean to Americans here in 2025?
Yeah, that's a great question. I grew up in Ohio as a Midwesterner. I was a Cincinnati Reds fan for a long time. But at night, you mentioned the radio. At night, I could get KMOX
Right.
in St. Louis, so I could listen to Harry Carey when I was supposed to be doing my homework. And I think a lot of us, at least of my generation, became attracted to baseball because of radio and because of the great radio announcers that broadcast games. The game has obviously changed. Technology has changed it. So baseball today is not quite like it was 100 years ago. But I think the general enthusiasm of baseball fans has existed for a long time, and especially in those core cities, as we mentioned, St. Louis, Chicago, Boston, and of course there are a lot of Yankee fans. I think the Giants and Dodgers fans in New York all had to migrate to the other coast, but the Yankees, the Red Sox, the Cubs, the Cardinals, those are franchises that go back to the beginning of the American and National Leagues.
Yeah. Here's my co-host, Eb Wilkinson.
Hey, it's so good to have you with us. I did not know that you grew up in Cincinnati. My family has a farm in Kentucky, and I remember going down there in the summers, and at night we would listen to the radio to the Cincinnati Reds game. And I don't know if you remember the announcer, Frank McCormick.
Oh, yeah.
He was the announcer then. This guy was great. He ruined watching baseball for me because he was so good as an announcer. You could just picture the game in your head. It was wonderful.
Joe Nuxall was also a guy on that broadcast as well, I think.
Yes.
Yeah, hey, Joe Nuxall. And before that, Wade Hoyt.
Yeah.
And that was kind of my era, when I was, a teenager. There'd be a rain delay in Cincinnati, and Wade Hoyt would be on the radio, and nobody turned him off because he was such a great storyteller, And I don't know if he ever paired up with Joe Nuxall, but I remember Nuxall, of course, was one of the youngest players ever signed to play in the major leagues. I think he pitched his first game in the major leagues at age 15 back in the 1940s. Yeah. So he's a historic figure as well as he was a good pitcher and a terrific announcer.
So 20s author F. Scott Fitzgerald said that fixing the 1919 World Series may have destroyed the faith of 50 million people, but it wasn't the end of gambling and game fixing. Talk about allegations of game fixing involving legendary stars like Tris Speaker and Ty Cobb.
Yeah, that's one of the stories that I tell in the book. The story that I tell arises from a game that was played in 1919 in Detroit. And it was a game between Ty Cobb's Tigers and Tris Speaker's Indians. And Ty Cobb had a pitcher named Dutch Leonard, a really, really good pitcher in the early part of the 20th century, who was basically blackballed out of baseball by Cobb, his manager, and by Tris Speaker, his former teammate. And he was very bitter about this. And in 1926, he came to Ban Johnson, who was president of the American League, and claimed that they had all bet on a game that was fixed in 1919, a week before the Black Sox series. So this kind of blew up as a big story, and eventually it had to be resolved by Judge Landis. the allegation from Dutch Leonard was that Tris Speaker, who was the player manager of the Indians, told Leonard and Ty Cobb and Smokey Joe Wood, who was a pitcher with the Indians, that he was certain the Indians were going to lose the next day, even though he was the manager, and they might as well bet some money on the game, which was not considered unethical at that time. Players could bet on games, unlike today, and unlike really since 1920. So Leonard alleged that this game was fixed. There really isn't evidence that it was fixed, but they certainly did gamble on it, and money was bet, and money was won by all the players except for Cobb, who's sort of on the, he supposedly agreed to bet money on the game, but his money was never collected or actually bet. But anyway, it was a huge scandal. It broke in the newspapers. Judge Landis had to deal with it. The story starts in May when Dutch Leonard makes these allegations. It continues in September when the American League presidents learn about it, and then it finally gets concluded in December of 26 when Judge Landis steps in to resolve it. But it's one of the key stories in the book.
Talk about the dead ball era. What was it?
The dead ball era really was a time when baseball games were very low scoring. There was a much more emphasis on bunting, pitching, base running. The home run existed, but few players tried to hit home runs. It really wasn't a part of the game. The power game wasn't the strategy. Hit and run, stolen bases. 3-2 games. All of that changed, of course, when a pitcher for the Boston Red Sox named Babe Ruth became a hitter and began hitting home runs at such a rate that it really changed the way baseball was played and the way fans related to it. In the dead ball area, there were plenty of fans, but the fan base expanded when Babe Ruth and then other home run hitters of the 1920s became, the real stars of that era.
So, Thomas, we would call dead ball today small ball, right?
Yeah.
Hunting and running and defensive play and so on. And I like a home run hit as much as anybody else. But small ball to me, and this is something my team, the Dodgers, had practiced for a long time. They've, for the last probably 20 years or so, they've gotten away from that and away from the fundamentals. It says a lot about baseball when it's all about crushing the ball over the fence and not doing all the little things to win a game, don't you think?
Oh yeah. It's definitely changed, and it's a merger of two different styles of play. And as you point out, teams that can. It depends somewhat on personnel, of course. If you've built a team around speed, and so think of some of those Cardinal teams in the 1960s that had Kurt Flood and Lou Brock.
Right.
Some of those teams were built to play small ball more so than a lot of teams are today when they're built around players that are either going to strike out or hit a home run.
Right.
So it's personnel related. I think it's also just related to what fans want. I think fans often like the big explosive games. I visit Colorado sometimes and always go to Coors Field where the air is thin and the balls just go flying out. And it's exciting to be in Coors Field and watch a 12-10 game. Just as it is exciting to be in a game, to watch a game pitched by Sandy Koufax, it's a 1-0 game. So baseball offers that in a way that I don't think other sports do in terms of the variety of outcomes of games and how those games are decided. There's so many small things that happen during a baseball game, so much nuance to the sport.
Yeah,
I grew up in Detroit, and I remember the '68 World Series.
Sure.
Detroit was pretty good at small ball. Small ball, stolen bases, Mickey Lolich, Denny McLean, Al Kaline, guys, all the greats.
So getting back to the 20s, talk about Rube Foster and black baseball in America.
Yeah, black baseball really existed as a kind of parallel universe to the white major leagues. And Rube Foster, in particular, is a really important historic figure in black baseball. He started playing baseball in the late 1800s, early 1900s, was a very successful pitcher. He then became a manager of the Chicago American Giants. Then he became a part owner, and then eventually became a visionary, really. And in 1920, he was the one who really organized, for the first time, Negro League teams into leagues that were similar to what the white major leagues had, where there were teams in cities around the country in two different leagues, the Eastern Colored League and the Negro National League, and those teams would play against each other in a predetermined schedule, with the winners then playing in a World Series, which was called the Colored World Series and started in 1924. So in 1926, it was the third version of the Colored World Series, and that's also the year when Rube Foster kind of dropped out of baseball. He suffered from mental illness, had to be hospitalized in 1926. And it was his much younger half brother, Willie Foster, who was the pitching star of the 1926 Colored World Series. And I might note that the Colored World Series was scheduled in 1926 to be played in 9 days, in 9 games, best of 9. But 2 games ended in ties. So they actually played 11 games over
Wow.
14 days in 4 different cities.
Wow.
The, the final game of that series, which was tied 4 games to 4 games, was won by the Chicago American Giants by scoring a run in the bottom of the ninth inning to win 1-0. It was a small ball game.
I,
There were only 3 hits. The Chicago American
wow.
Giants only had 3 hits in that game. They got the only run in the bottom of the ninth to win what took 2 weeks to complete as the Colored World Series. So very dramatic, equally dramatic to the white Major League World Series of 1926 between the Cardinals and Yankees.
So I've been to 4 Dodger games so far this season. Let's um, talk about prohibition during the 1920s in professional baseball. When I was in San Diego watching a Dodger Padre game, I got a beer to wash down my hot dogs. That beer cost $20. Roaring Twenties baseball was conducted during Prohibition. Talk about the impact of Prohibition on big league baseball attendance and revenue for club owners at that time.
Yeah, owners used to get a fair amount of revenue from selling beverages at ball games, and of course, Prohibition came in 1920, lasted until 1933. So the 1926 season was right in the midst of Prohibition. Um, it affected the game, or affected fans in that they couldn't buy beer at the ballparks, but they could buy hot dogs and Cracker Jacks and popcorn. Um, Attendance really didn't suffer that much. Um, there was some lost revenue, I'm sure, because they couldn't sell beer. And although it was an era of prohibition, it didn't really impact players who wanted to drink. And one of the things I note in the book about 1926 is that players went on these long road trips, sometimes 2 to 3 weeks at a time. And of course, they only played day games, so they had their nights free. And ball players knew where all the speakeasies were in all those major cities. So I'm not sure that prohibition slowed down any professional athletes who wanted to drink outside the ballpark.
Eb?
Let's talk about fan support during the 20s. Calvin Coolidge, he was president for most of the 20s. He and his wife Grace were big fans. Washington Senators manager Bucky Harris said that the president's wife was the most rabid fan I ever knew in the White House. Talk about her
Yeah,
and in general about the growth of female fan support of the game.
yeah. Female fan support really began, I think, in the early 1900s, especially in the American League, where the league cracked down on language and behavior that was offensive in the stands. The game became a little more civilized. Um, in the early 1900s, leading into the 1920s, and that drew more female fans to the game. As for the Coolidges, Calvin was not really a particularly big sports fan. He was a very dry guy. He had a sense of humor, but he was probably the dullest person to ever serve as chief executive. He believed that the less government did, the better off everybody was, and that included himself. He used to take naps every afternoon. It was said he slept 12 hours a day. So he was the exact opposite of his wife, Grace, who was very vivacious. She's the first lady to have graduated from a 4-year college, and she loved baseball from the time that she was a younger girl, young woman. In college, she learned how to keep score. She kept score for her college baseball team, and she came to the White House as a baseball fan, as a Washington Senators fan. And the Senators, of course, won the American League pennant in both 24 and 25, while the Coolidges were in the White House. And later, after Calvin Coolidge left the presidency and moved back to Boston, she became a Red Sox fan. But she was a fan all the way through to the end of her life, and she knew she had a special passion, which was that she really hated the intentional walk. So she was the kind of fan who actually picked up on the nuances of the game and had strong opinions about the way it should be played.
Thomas, before we head out today, your book focuses on the Yankees and the Cardinals in the 26th World Series. Talk about that special season and specifically the series.
Yeah. For the Yankees, they had finished 7th in 1925, so 1926 was a rebound year for them, as it was for Babe Ruth. Babe Ruth had his worst season in 1925. Nobody expected the Yankees to even be a first division club in 1926. The Cardinals, on the other hand, who were led by Rogers Hornsby, were a much more dynamic team going into the 1926 season, and the Cardinals made 2 player moves during the season. They traded for Billy Southworth of the Giants, and they traded, most importantly, for Grover Cleveland Alexander, who was a 39-year-old pitcher, was kind of a storied pitcher, but one at the end of his career. And it turned out that Grover Cleveland Alexander was the pitching hero of the 1926 World Series. And just to capture that World Series in a few sentences, it went to a 7th game. It went back and forth. Alexander pitched a complete game win in Game 2 in Yankee Stadium and in Game 6 in Yankee Stadium, and then came in to save Game 7. And Game 7 is dramatic because the score got to 3-2. The Cardinals were ahead 3-2 going to the bottom of the 9th inning, 7th game of the World Series in Yankee Stadium. And who comes to the plate but Babe Ruth? 2 outs, bottom of the 9th. Ruth walks. Bob Musil is the next hitter. Lou Gehrig follows him. Ruth tries to steal second base and is thrown out, tagged out by Rogers Hornsby. It's the only World Series that ever ended, and probably the only one that ever will end, on a failed stolen base, with Hornsby and Ruth, the 2 players involved in it.
Wow. Thomas Wolfe, whether or not you're a baseball fan, his book, Baseball in the Roaring '20s, here it is again. Here you go. Is a winner, fun read, and provides a great look at our national pastime. Thanks very much for joining us, Tom. When we return, we'll spend the balance of today's show with David Bossie from Citizens United. You're watching and listening to Inside Track with Eb and Bruce on Live the Dream Media Network. When we return, we'll finish the show up with Mr. Bossie.
Thanks, Tom.
Thank you, Tom.
Thank you. It's been great.
You bet.
You're listening to Inside Track with Bruce Ash on the Live the Dream Media Network. Now a word from our sponsor.
It's termite season.
Hi, it's me.
And bugs fear the blue trucks from Essential Pest Control.
Go blue at Essential Pest Control. We'll eliminate those bugs, bees, and termites. And stop paying too much to that national provider. Buy local for great service and affordable rates. Call Essential Pest Control because termites fear the blue.
Run for your life.
Call for the blue trucks from Essential Pest Control. 886-3029. That's 886-3029. Or check online at essentialpest.com.
This is Eb Wilkinson with Wilkinson Wealth Management, where we manage money for gun owners. What does it mean to retire comfortably and remain comfortably retired? It means designing a plan that allows you to do the things you want to do, outpace inflation, and never run out of money in your lifetime. If you want to retire comfortably and remain comfortably retired, call me, Eb Wilkinson, at 777-1911. That's 777-1911 or WilkinsonWealthMGMT.com.
I'm proud to welcome my good friends at Tucson Iron and Metal Retail to Inside Track as an advertiser. Jamie Kipper and her staff are conservation experts. They sell round and square steel tubing, metal plate and roofing materials, as well as new and used steel, aluminum, and stainless steel to ranchers, artists, interior designers, roofers, as well as you do-it-yourselfers out there. Tucson Iron and Metal Retail is open Monday through Fridays, 8 a.m. to 4:30 p.m., and Saturdays, 8 a.m. to noon. Tucson Iron and Steel Retail, 701 East 36th Street. Call 520-209-1576. That's 520-209-1576, or go to TucsonIronRetail.com. Come by and be sure to ask for Jamie. Tucson Iron and Steel Retail. This is what conservation and repurposing is all about.
This is an urgent message from the Daniel Gutierrez for Congress campaign. The CD7 special election's going on right now. If you haven't voted yet, now's the time to do it. If you think you're on the early voter list and you haven't received your ballot, it's time to take action. Head over to the Pima Votes website where you can find early voting sites and drop-off boxes. Pima Vote site also has map and listing of all the Election Day vote centers, which are open from 6 a.m. to 7 p.m. September 23rd. This is going to be a tough election. Every vote counts. Make sure you're part of the change that needs to happen in Southern Arizona CD7. Make sure you vote and vote for Daniel Gutierrez, paid for by Gutierrez for U.S. Congress.
Welcome back to Inside Track with Bruce Ash on the Live the Dream Media Network. Now back to our show.
Welcome back to Inside Track with Bruce and Eb on this Constitution Day 2025. This portion of the show brought to you by Wilkinson Wealth Management. Eb helps gun owners with their retirement accounts. He does a great job for my family, and he'll do the same for yours. Call him today at 520-777. I'd give him the double click, 1911. Eb?
Wow. Hey, Inside Track is also brought to you by Bruce's 60-year-old commercial real estate company, Paul Ash Commercial Real Estate. They make good things happen every day. And we also hope you're going to call on our good friend, Eric Rudin. His great team at Essential Pest Control, they do a wonderful job. You can rely on them. Call them at 886-3029 today to protect your home or business from all manner of pests, vermins, and pesky critters. Finally, if you need steel products for your home, business, ranch, or farm, call Jamie Kipper at Tucson Iron and Metal Surplus. They are Tucson's conservation specialists. Call them at 209-1576 or go to the yard at 701 East 36th Street. You will be amazed at the great products sold at warehouse at wholesale prices. Bruce?
So, Shay, do we have Mr. Bossie on the line one way or another?
Yes, sir.
Oh, David, great to hear your voice. We've been hearing a lot about the importance of free speech last week. Eb and I are pleased to welcome you. You're a man who embodies free speech. David Bossie, for those of you who don't know the name, has led one of America's leading free speech proponents, Citizens United. But David joins us today to discuss crime-fighting deployment of federal support in Memphis, Tennessee. I served with David at the RNC. He's from Maryland and one of America's architects of America First. I can attest to his considerable political influence in support of the president. So the president's decision to reduce crime in the nation's capital has provided or produced significant results over the past month, don't you think?
It really has, Bruce. First, thanks for having me back. it's been an amazing transformation. Washington, D.C.'s gone from, obviously our nation's capital, but really a leader in every crime statistic, that people follow and care about, whether it is muggings, shootings, stabbings, murders, carjackings, and every single one of them is down incredibly so, substantially. Murder is down, by 60. I think it's about 65% down. Carjackings were down at 86% last I looked. So it is putting the FBI, the ATF, the National Guard, and other law enforcement agencies working in tandem as a task force, putting boots on the ground, has just made Washington, D.C. a safer place. Just the other day, and it's obviously the president has, an incredible protective detail, but the president wanted to show and make a show of the fact that he walked down the street, walked across a long promenade to go to a restaurant because he wanted the residents of Washington, D.C., of Maryland and Virginia, and across the country to see that this is a safe city, and it is, and much safer. I'm on Capitol Hill right now as we speak, and it's a different place than it was a month ago. And what the president has seen is the results of that has emboldened him to try and take on these other crime-ridden cities, and some of them are great. Look, they're great cities. That's not the conversation. The conversation is making these great cities great for their citizens and not for the criminals. And that's what President Trump, he doesn't care if you voted for him or not. He wants you to have a great city. He wants you to have a beautiful city. He wants you to have a safe city. And it's not like Washington, D.C. voted for President Trump. Right. It's not like Chicago or any of these others that we would be talking about voted for him. They didn't. He wants them to have great opportunities, great, safe communities to live in, to work in, to raise their families in.
Yep.
Yeah, David, when we think of Memphis, we think of blues music scene, but it has been racked by serious crime issues like so many of these party-run cities are facing today. Leftist Democrat Steve Cohen is a longtime member of Congress representing parts of Memphis. He has criticized the president's plan to assist local law enforcement. Why are he and Democrat Mayor Paul Young trying to obstruct the president's crime-fighting efforts to protect that city?
It's incredible. First of all, that guy is part of the problem, not part of the solution.
He sure is.
He has been a part of the problem for a generation. And so I'm not very familiar with the mayor of Memphis. But if you are a mayor of a big city and you aren't, here's how the citizens look at it. Because I'm here in Washington, D.C., and I can tell you, whether people voted for Donald Trump or not, they want to be safe. They want their children to not be in danger when they're on the streets. And so when it seems in the media that you care more about protecting the rights of the bad guys, okay, and above the citizens, above the taxpayer, above the men and women who are trying to raise their families and go to work and pay the taxes, that's a problem. And that's where you're seeing more and more, especially in these hotbed cities like Chicago, where you see residents who aren't necessarily Donald Trump supporters, but they come from the black communities, the Hispanic communities, and they're saying we want Chicago to be safe. So I haven't seen that, in Memphis, in the sense that we see the leftists opposing it, and this is brand new. So I think we're going to see plenty of people come out and say, We want these people here. We want law enforcement to make it a great. Look, Memphis is a great city. Memphis can be greater, and that's what Donald Trump cares about. He wants people to have greater cities, greater opportunities, greater safety, and that's what this entire effort is about.
Yeah, the only people opposing this are the leadership and the bad guys.
Right. That's a hell of a coalition.
It is. And I mean,
Right?
here in Tucson, we've got a bleeding heart left-wing liberal mayor who is doing the exact same thing. We've got an attorney, what the heck is her title? Laura Conover.
The district or the county attorney.
Yeah, the county attorney. It's a revolving door. The police, they bring them in. They're out before the police sign their name on the police report. It is just crazy, and yet they keep saying,
it's the liberal policies. It's the liberal policies and the liberal judges, and then it's people who live in Tucson, as an example, who put up with it.
Right.
Instead of saying enough's enough, they allow these left-wing lunatics to get reelected. You have to throw the bums out and put in people with common sense. Common sense. That's what Donald Trump has. That's how he governs. He says, hey, let's make sure that the bad guys are in prison and the good guys are able to walk the streets safely. That's common sense, and that's why he got reelected to a historic second term.
David, we promised that we'd get you back to your important daily activities here, but I do want to just ask a final question or two. We're speaking about crime. One of the most horrific crimes in this country's past, several years, maybe decades, was the assassination last week of the great Charlie Kirk. Your thoughts on that, the role that the FBI and law enforcement, when they came together to wrap up the investigation and bring a suspect into custody. Talk about the horrific event, but also talk about what law enforcement has done.
Well, it's a shocking thing. I've known Charlie for a long time, and so it's personally a blow to freedom and to good men and women everywhere that he was taken from us. But to watch the police, the county police, the state police, and the FBI come together to work and have somebody in custody in 32, 33 hours was a remarkable feat. This person is a radical leftist who is going to hopefully face we know they're going to be facing the death penalty. He's going to be facing the death penalty in this trial, but it doesn't bring Charlie back. And Charlie was an incredible political leader and organizer, but even his friends, it's kind of funny in life. We all have this happen to us, but you don't appreciate people for what they have and what they do in life until they're gone.
Right.
And that's really, to be honest with you, you're not seeing people burn down city blocks. You're not seeing cars torched. You're not seeing police officers attacked. You're seeing prayer vigils organically pop up. By the way, there's hundreds of people at them or thousands of people at them, and they're taking place at churches. They're taking place on college campuses. They're taking place, in the public square. And that's what Charlie was, the old-fashioned founding father. Remember, we were founded on a soapbox in a public square. And that's what Charlie did so well. He was a debater and a fierce debater and a great debater. His intellect was unbelievable, unmatched. But his ability to bring forth scripture and use the Bible and biblical teachings in his debates and in his conversations with people, and bring people to, even though he disagreed with them, even though he wanted to defeat their argument, he did it respectfully. And so to see him snatched from us in such an unbelievably violent and horrific way, because of the dehumanizing language of the left, because the left calls us all Nazis, because they call us all fascists, because they using words that dehumanize their opponents, instead of debating us and agreeing to disagree, which is what Charlie would do. And that's what Charlie did. He agreed to disagree. He said, "Hey, I'm for this, you're for that. We have a great sparring debate, but at the end, we're going to agree to disagree." And Charlie lived, really, he said it quite often, which was, when we stop using words, that's when people resort to violence.
That's right.
And that's what's happened here. And I got to be honest with you, we're in a battle of ideas. We're in a war of good versus evil. And this is not, and I don't use those, I use those words on purpose because the left wants us to shrink. The left wants us to say, "Oh, let's all sing Kumbaya and come together." There's only one way to end this, and that's with victory at the ballot box. We have to have Charlie's death mean something. And I can tell you, I know the people at Turning Point. The incredible spark that this horrific event has really lit amongst young people, and that's where this is going to head. And I think you're going to see organizing amongst the young and the turnout to vote amongst the youth, up over the next year. We have elections, off-year elections coming up, as you know, Bruce, in Virginia, New Jersey, and other places. I think those will be impacted, but I think the midterms will be impacted because a year from now, people will be remembering Charlie fondly.
Yeah, David, you said something interesting talking about Charlie as like a founding father. I just pulled up the ages of some of the founding fathers, and this will surprise a lot of people.
Yeah.
James Monroe,
right.
18.
Yeah.
Aaron Burr, 20. Alexander Hamilton, 21. James Madison, 25. Thomas Jefferson, 33. John Adams, 40. The old guy, George Washington, 44. I mean, this country was founded by people just like Charlie Kirk, and that explains, Charlie is an absolute example of what these founding fathers were. He knew so much and was so good at such a young age. That scares the piss out of the Democrats.
Yeah, it does. You could. Charlie Kirk was 31 years old. He was an old guy in the group you just talked about. And so, it's really a remarkable thing. The depth and breadth of knowledge of the guys like Jefferson and Monroe and others, right? They had this unbelievable ability to learn, and without an education system like there is today, obviously.
Thank God.
But Charlie, right, and Charlie, who, by the way, prided himself on not going to college, was so incredibly smart. His intellect, I put him up against anybody. And by the way, it wasn't just, knowing a little bit about a lot of topics. He knew a lot about a lot. And it was surprising to me when I would see him debate, but I got to be honest, I miss him. I'm going to miss him. He was an incredible patriot. And we all have to pick up the torch and carry on where he left off. And I don't say that lightly. I recognize he was murdered. He was assassinated. He didn't, people like to say, "Oh, he passed away." He didn't. He was taken from us. And so we have a long way to go in this country, but we need to get shoulder to shoulder and work hard and live up to what he wanted this country to be.
It's almost like a Obi-Wan moment where Obi-Wan Kenobi's getting ready to be struck down, and he said, "Striking me down will make me more powerful than you can ever imagine."
And that's what Erica said the other night.
Yeah, you guys are exactly right. Look, a martyr's life, and I don't use that word. This is really the first instance in my
is a
life
martyr.
where I talk about a martyr. And because I just have, in my lifetime, and I'm, not young anymore, is in my lifetime, this is the first person that really reaches that level. And a martyr's life begins at their death. And that is where Charlie is. Charlie is going to live on through everyone who's listening and everyone at Turning Point and all the young people across the country. He's going to live on. So,
David Bossie, this could be a turning point. Thanks for joining us today. I have long appreciated the great work you do as Citizens United, the wise counsel you provided to the president, the leadership at the RNC. I think all America wants to come together around our great American principles, especially on today, Constitution Day. Thanks very much for joining us.
Thanks, David.
Thanks, Bruce. Appreciate it. Bye, guys.
You bet. Well, Eb, it's been a hell of a week.
It's been an incredible
week. David eloquently talked about the last week, it's amazing. We finished our show last Wednesday, and 2.5 hours later, my son walked into my office and he pushed his cell phone in my face and he says, "Can you believe this happened?" I looked at that horrific video.
Yes,
and I said, "This has got to be AI. There's no way that happened." And then I go to my laptop and I see, this photo, and I turn ashen. I couldn't believe what I just seen and what had just occurred. You and I have lived through. You were a little younger than me at the JFK assassination.
I remember it.
I was in 6th grade. I remember Robert F. Kennedy Jr.'s assassination, Martin Luther King, the attacks on Governor Wallace, the attacks on President Trump, the attacks on President Ford, President Reagan.
Right.
This one struck. I met Charlie probably around 2014 or so. And I wish we had more time with David because I wanted to ask him what his impressions were of Charlie when he first met him. Because he was kind of a young, not a punk like a bad guy, but he was this young guy just filled with enthusiasm and filled with himself at the time. Who could have imagined what we saw over the past 10, 12 years or so? And think about, and this is the big thing, he wasn't old enough to run for president of the United States. But this is a man who likely 10, 15, 20 years from now might have been a candidate and quite possibly president of the United States. I think about having gone through the Kennedy assassinations. What would the country have looked like? Or Lincoln before him, right? What difference might there be in our country had Lincoln lived, or JFK, or Robert Kennedy had he been elected president? Martin Luther King had his ministry and his right. work continued for another 10, 20, 30 years or so. This country has had a huge setback here as well.
Yeah, just think of the evil in each one of those cases that robbed not just them, but America of them and the greatness that they could have achieved.
So now it's up, and I send this message out to anybody watching or listening to us. Now it's out for us to pick up the mantle. And notwithstanding a lot of roadblocks, there is a lot of momentum in this area. Even last night here at the University of Arizona in Tucson, there was a huge vigil that turned out to memorialize and to talk about and think about the life of Charlie Kirk.
And how many storefronts were burnt down and broken into?
David pointed out 0.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, we win the argument not with bullets but with ballots, because that's what needs to happen here. We have the by-elections here shortly in Virginia, and I think there's one other locality as well coming up in just a month. We have elections here in Tucson. And
you're seeing the left start to implode.
Yeah. Well, look, ABC reporter calls alleged Charlie Kirk assassins text messages with transgender partner very touching. Okay.
Really?
An ABC affiliate reporter resigns after being suspended for Charlie Kirk tribute on which she did in her news broadcast and of her own volition. Rather than take the suspension, she quit. Okay, the left doesn't get it. Okay, here in Tucson, we see stickers that are placed on bumpers of cars, on candidates' campaign signs. Make assassinations great again. The left has learned no lessons. They have not taken a breath in where they've been at for the last long time.
No, and I'm good to see that people standing up and saying, you're fired.
Right.
You're done. I mean, Secret Service agents doing that, Army captains
Right.
doing that. Are you kidding me?
You have to question their judgment. Somebody was talking about there was an airline pilot, a captain of an airliner who basically said, well, isn't it a good thing Charlie Kirk died? You have to question that person's decision-making process. And if you're questioning him on a political issue, what kind of faith and confidence do you have that he's going to get you to your next destination?
Or what about the doctor that said to
Exactly.
his nurses, that was a good thing? How would you like to go to your doctor who's working on your heart, your body, whatever, and him find out that you're conservative with his views?
Right.
It doesn't take much of a flick of a knife.
I'm screwed up because everybody knows what my political
right
is here. A poll yesterday that came out from YouGov, liberals more likely to say political violence is sometimes justified. And a small number on top of that, about another 10%, said all the time.
Wow.
All the time. In other, and this is not exactly the same topic, but New York Governor Kathy Hochul endorses socialist Zoran Mondani for mayor. Then he refuses to endorse her as she's running for governor, which just shows these guys, they're ruthless.
Right.
They're ruthless. You'll take her endorsement, but he won't endorse her.
They're narcissists.
And she'll be the next victim. Politically, in this particular case, because they'll run a socialist for governor of New York.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
This past week at the Emmys, a lady called Hannah Einbender says the following: is extraordinary amount of dysfunction which exists in all too many of my leftist Jewish brothers and sisters. For a Jew to make statements reveals the dark underside of Reform conservative. This is me talking now, of Reform conservative, and I believe in some Orthodox sects as well. This is cultural suicide. We not only hate others, we hate ourselves so much that we're willing to do damage to us as a society. I mean, there's really, I blame this on COVID, I blame this on lack of faith in the government. There's been all kinds of stuff that America is a changed place. And hopefully, we do make that turning point at this time and start moving towards reconciliation. That's what Charlie Kirk was all about.
That's what he was about.
Reconciliation.
He asked a lot of questions. He made you defend your position.
Think. And how many times did you see like this confused, dazed look, okay, on the guys who are challenging him, and they walk away? You think, well, God, maybe he's right.
Yeah, that didn't work.
No.
Yeah, and he would say, no, don't look at your phone. Put your phone down.
Right.
Talk to me.
Right.
Don't read what's on your phone. Talk to me.
Exactly. Well, Eb, take us home. It's about that time.
Yeah, it is. And thank you all for tuning in. All of our Inside Track podcasts are available on Live the Dream Media Facebook page, YouTube, Spotify, Instagram, and X. Thanks for joining us today on Inside Track. Until next Wednesday when we return with...
We don't know who our guest is going to be next week. We're going to play it by ear.
Oh, we're not going to now. Okay. So I made a great suggestion to Bruce about who we're going to have. We're going to make sure that works. Be sure to join us again. This is Eb Wilkinson.
And Bruce Ash.
We'll see you again in 167 hours.
You're listening to Inside Track with Bruce Ash, on the Live the Dream Media Network. Now a word from our sponsor.
It's termite season.
Hi, it's me.
And bugs fear the blue trucks from Essential Pest Control.
Go blue at Essential Pest Control. We'll eliminate those bugs, bees, and termites. And stop paying too much to that national provider. Buy local for great service and affordable rates. Call Essential Pest Control because termites fear the blue.
Run for your life.
Call for the blue trucks from Essential Pest Control. 886-3029. That's 886-3029. Or check online at essentialpest.com.
This is Ed Wilkinson with Wilkinson Wealth Management, where we manage money for gun owners. What does it mean to retire comfortably and remain comfortably retired? It means designing a plan that allows you to do the things you want to do, outpace inflation, and never run out of money in your lifetime. If you want to retire comfortably and remain comfortably retired, call me, Ed Wilkinson, at 777-1911. That's 777-1911 or WilkinsonWealthMGMT.com.
I'm proud to welcome my good friends at Tucson Iron and Metal Retail to Inside Track as an advertiser. Jamie Kipper and her staff are conservation experts. They sell round and square steel tubing, metal plate and roofing materials, as well as new and used steel, aluminum, and stainless steel to ranchers, artists, interior designers, roofers, as well as you do-it-yourselfers out there. Tucson Iron and Metal Retail is open Monday through Fridays, 8 a.m. to 4:30 p.m., and Saturdays, 8 a.m. to noon. Tucson Iron and Steel Retail, 701 East 36th Street. Call 520-209-1576. That's 520-209-1576, or go to TucsonIronRetail.com. Come by and be sure to ask for Jamie. Tucson Iron and Steel Retail. This is what conservation and repurposing is all about.